Dear students, the topic of memorandum of association is very important from examination point of view. So in this video, I am going to discuss one of the important questions relating to memorandum of association, which has appeared many times in JNU University examinations. That is, what is memorandum of association? Discuss its major contents. It has come in other form also, that is, explain the various clauses of memorandum of association. So first we will start with meaning of memorandum of association. So dear students, this memorandum of association, it is one of the documents which has to be filed while registration of the company, that is at the time of incorporation of the company, and it is a legal document which describes the purpose for which company is formed. So next topic we will take importance. It's an extremely important document in relation to affairs of the company, as it defines powers of the company and the conditions under which it operates, right? And it defines its relation with outside world and the scope of its activities. Now you have to understand this point. Scope. It means a company may pursue only such objects and exercise only such powers as are conferred expressly in memorandum, right? Or which are incidental. So only such powers. It means a company cannot depart from the provisions contained in its memorandum. If it does so, if it goes beyond the powers which have been written in the memorandum, it would be ultra virus, right? And it will be ultra virus the company, and it will be wholly void. It will be void. So memorandum is very important document. And it's a public document. After registration of a company, the memorandum becomes public document. So it's a very important, and it is a foundation on which company is made. After discussing this, next is purpose. What is the purpose of memorandum? I have just told you the memorandum of association is a public document. So it's available for inspection. So basically it serves two purposes. First, the intending shareholder who is going to invest in the company shall know within what field it is to be put at risk. That is, he will come to know about, before buying its shares, he will find out what is the purpose for which his money is going to be used by the company and what risk he is taking in making this investment. Then it provides information to all the stakeholders who are willing to associate with the company in any way. That is, anyone who wants to deal with the company, he will know without reasonable doubt whether the contractual relation into which he contemplates entering with the company is one relating to a matter which has been written in the objects. For example, supplier of a goods or money, he will come to know whether the transaction he intends to make within the company's object, yes or no, or whether it's ultra virus. So any person will come to know about this. Then we have contents of memorandum. So first clause is name clause. The first clause of memorandum requires a company to state its name. You have to write what is the name of your company and what is the condition. No company shall be registered by name which in opinion of the central government is undesirable. Secondly, in particular, which is identical to, which is similar to, which resembles to any other company, any other existing company. So you cannot choose such name of your new company. So here's the case: Ewing versus Buttercup Margarine Company Limited. Plaintiff was carrying on a retail business in margarine as Buttercup Dairy Company. Another company incorporated as the Buttercup Margarine Company Limited and intending to carry on wholesale business in margarine. So it was held that plaintiff was entitled to restrain newly registered company from carrying on the business. Now see, if one already company is existing with the name Buttercup Dairy Company, you cannot start a company with the name Buttercup Margarine Company Limited. Why you cannot start? Because the public might reasonably think that the newly registered company is concerned with the already existing company. So it is not allowed. The name of the company should not resemble with any company which is existing. Then declaration by the applicant. Yes, applicant shall be required. Applicant means the person who is applying for the name in a prescribed form. He will have to he is required to furnish a declaration to the effect that he has used search facilities available on the portal of Ministry of Corporate Affairs for checking the resemblance of the proposed name, and the proposed name is not infringing the registered trademark, right? And the proposed name is not in violation of the provisions of Emblems and Names Act 1950. So he undertakes to be fully responsible for the consequences in case the name is subsequently found to be in contravention of prescribed guidelines. Then next question is use of word limited. Yes, every public company must write the word limited after its name. Every private limited company must write the word private limited after its name. And one person company should write one person company after its name. However, the word company is not compulsory, right? Then next is when the word limited may be dropped, when it is not to be written. Okay, so there are two cases. In case of charitable companies and the companies formed to promote art, science or religion which do not propose to pay dividend. Okay, they do not want to pay the dividend, but they intend to apply all its profits towards the working of the company. So these companies can be registered without the word limited under the license granted by the central government. Then next topic is publication of the name. This is the next heading, publication of name. So every company shall paint or affix its name, address of its registered office, where on outside of every office or the place in which its business is carried on. Even name should be engraved on its seal also, right? And in all business letters, bill heads, letter papers, all notices, other official publications, name should be written of the company, address should be written of its registered office, corporate identity number should be written, telephone number should be written, fax, email and website address must be written. Even the name of the company should be printed on promissory notes, bills of exchange, hundis and all such documents. So next clause we have registered office clause. This clause specifies the name of the state in which the registered office of the company is situated. So it decides the domicile of the company. So a company shall have its registered office, okay, and such office must be in existence on and from the 15th day of its incorporation. So notice of the situation of registered office and every change therein must be given to the registrar within 15 days. So registered office is very important. It's really a permanent address of the company, okay, and it is a residence of the company and it decides the domicile of a company. And address of the registered office must be specified on all the correspondences and bills. So if any default is made in complying with these requirements, then company and every other officer who is in default shall be punishable with fine which may extend to 1,000 rupees for every day during which the default continues, but not exceeding rupees 1 lakh. Next clause is object clause. Basically it is divided into two parts. So this defines the limits and extent of activities of the company. So two parts are, number one, main objects, that is objects to be pursued on incorporation. Then incidental objects, that is matters necessary for furtherance thereof. Purpose of this object clause is, it serves two purposes. It enables the subscribers or the shareholders to know the use to which their investment money is put and thus extends protection to shareholders. Then it extends certain degree of protection to creditors also, in as much as the company cannot spend its capital on any equity activities which are not within the scope of object clause. Then we have liability clause. Okay, so it states the liability of members of the company. In case of company limited by shares, liability of members is restricted by the amount unpaid on their shares. And in case, let's suppose a person has a paid full value of rupees 10, then it's a fully paid up shares he is holding, then he cannot be required to pay anything more, even if the company owes huge debts to its creditors. And for a company limited by guarantee, the liability of members is restricted by the amount each member has agreed to contribute. Then we have capital clause. This clause states the authorized or nominal share capital, different kinds of shares, and the nominal value of each share. Right? So, and publication of authorized as well as subscribed and paid up capital is necessary. What does it mean? It means if a company publishes its authorized capital in any notice, advertisement, or official publication, or billhead, letterhead, anywhere, so it shall also mention the equal prominence, the amount subscribed and paid up. Right? Otherwise, just looking at authorized capital, a person may be misled to believe that the company is big, or maybe actually it is a small company. So it's a compulsory, whenever they are writing authorized, they must mention the subscribed and paid up capital. So next we have association or subscription clause. So this clause provides that those who have agreed to subscribe to memorandum must signify their willingness to associate and form a company. So memorandum has to be signed by each subscriber in presence of at least one witness who must attest the signature. So one witness to all the signatures is sufficient, but a subscriber cannot attest the signature of another subscriber, right? So each subscriber must write opposite his name the number of shares he shall take. So no subscriber to memorandum shall take less than one share. So next we have nomination or succession clause. This is for only OPCs, that is one person company. So in case of OPC, there is a requirement to have 7th clause to describe nominee in the event of death of the subscriber. So these were all the clauses and or contents of memorandum. So in conclusion, we can write memorandum of association is company's charter. It defines the limitations of the powers of the company, and it is extremely important document in relation to the affairs of the company. Thank you.